This is season 3 of Whatever She's Having with Linda Hoffner and
Claire Suma Duaria.
And we're here to talk about being fearless, showing up for ourselves, and being a champion for other women's success. Today, we are joined by the incredible Tanji Johnson Bridgeman, a military veteran, fitness champion, entrepreneur, leader, transformational keynote and TEDx speaker, and just overall badass boss babe. Welcome, Tanji. We're so excited to have you join us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So you are such a highly decorated athlete. I mean, should we dive right in, or should we just talk about it first? Or like,
I got to know about this, like, fitness champion. We got to know.
Perfect. So you winning 11 Wow. Okay. You have 11 championship titles in the world of bodybuilding.
Which is how I met.
Is that how you met her?
That's how I know of her. Is from
okay,
bodybuilding.
so she's actually a true celebrity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like I'm having a little fangirl moment.
By the way, when my bestie said, we should interview her, I was like, okay, let me look at it. I was like, oh my goodness, this person's really cool. Like your Instagram, like so engaging and super authentic.
Thank you.
She literally texted me and she goes, "You know her?"
I was like, "You know her?" She's like so cool. But okay, I'm sorry, I got distracted. But what keeps you engaged in the sports and the role you play as a mentor to other women discovering bodybuilding?
What keeps me engaged now?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, let me start by saying that I never ever would have dreamed that I would spend 2 decades with a career in fitness and bodybuilding, because I grew up an Army brat, and I literally thought that my life was going to be serving in the military forever. Mm-hmm. That's what I thought. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty crazy how, can I tell you the story how it all came about?
Yeah, no, please.
Okay.
We'd love to.
So it started in college. Okay. I went to the Air Force Academy in Colorado, and in my last 2 years there, I cheered. And so as part of our after practice protocol, we had to lift weights. So that's when I first started lifting weights. And I loved it. And so I started developing this muscular physique, but it was a little unique because, the other girls didn't look like that. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I remember developing this self-consciousness about my muscularity. Even though I enjoyed being strong and was a little bit of a tomboy, I just felt really insecure about how muscular I was getting because I wasn't sure if it was feminine, right? Mm-hmm. And because other people didn't look like me.
Yeah.
And so I think that when I discovered bodybuilding, I had this need for community and belonging.
We talked a lot about community.
Yes.
Our last episode was all about community.
So imagine me being like a girl in a candy store when I'm watching ESPN, and at the time, I mean, we're talking like 30 years ago, Fitness America pageant, ESPN, that was a thing. And I saw these girls that were super fit, muscular, and it was like my eyes lit up because I thought, those girls look like me. And I actually thought they were very beautiful, very feminine. I didn't feel that way about myself, but I just remember feeling like this might be my tribe. This might be my tribe. And I want to just be in this culture where other women are doing the same thing I'm doing, and I want to feel normal. And it's interesting that back then, I wanted to belong, where now, in my more mature years, it's really, I'm just very comfortable. I don't care necessarily if I am the same or need to blend in. I'm just authentically myself, but it took 30 years to get to that, right? So that's what attracted me to bodybuilding first. So I started competing when I was in college.
Wow. How, I guess, what changed? What made you feel so much more comfortable now versus 30 years ago?
So there's this journey that I went through. So, when you think of the physical challenges, it puts you in these situations where you discover yourself over and over again. And I'll never forget, so one of my biggest victories, people will look at your resume and they'll say, oh my goodness, you won 11 championship titles. That's so cool. That's not really the stuff I remember the most. Mm-hmm. What I remember is one of the biggest insecurities I ever had when I was starting off competing. And that was, so my mother's Korean, my dad's Black. Okay. And, I was born, breast-wise, with a A cup. And then when I got
Girl,
lean,
preach.
right?
Preach.
And so then when I started competing and I got really lean, that A turned into an A minus, which wasn't a thing when I was in the military and when I was a cadet because nobody had breast implants. But now when I turned pro and I became a professional, and that was around the time where, you know, augmentation was becoming very popular. And I was coming into an industry where every time I looked around,
everybody had them.
Everybody had them. And they got them a lot of times because as women, you know, either you breastfeed and you have children or you get really lean and you lose a lot of that breast tissue. And so women wanted to feel more balanced and more feminine. And I developed this harsh insecurity that I was masculine, that I wasn't attractive, even though my body was really nice. And I'll never forget going to the Olympia, which is like our Olympics. Yeah. And I was dating this guy at the time, and I had competed. I think I got 5th in the world. And then the next day we were going to the Mr. Olympia, and I just had a breakdown in my room trying to pick out a dress. Because every dress I put on, being that lean, I just was like, I just feel so unattractive. Like my chest is flat. I don't have boobs. And he just put me in my place. Like he literally said to me, you have one of the nicest bodies in the world and you're crying about boobs. Like, do you know how many women would love to have your body right now? And it just turned the light on for me. And so that was one of my moments, my aha moments of growth where I thought, you know what, he's right. Nothing has changed about me. I have had this body forever, but my environment has changed. And so that's what changed. And so I can either go change with the environment and chase it and do what I think I need to do to be accepted, or I just need to go through that process of self-discovery and learn how to embrace my own beauty. And it took 2 years. So this isn't like a quick fix. This took 2 years of me self-talking as I looked in the mirror, saying things to myself like my chest is very athletic, starting to, you know, notice other people too, like Gwyneth Paltrow, people on the red carpet who also had a flat chest, but that I didn't judge as not being feminine. And so over time that started to change. And what was so crazy is right around the time that I started to project myself differently as a woman who was beautiful, who was sexy and feminine and also strong and did not need to have big boobs, this is when I started getting the calls to do swimsuit issues in bodybuilding magazines, to be on the cover of magazines, to do training model. And I remember when one magazine called and said they wanted me in their swimsuit issue, I said, you know I don't have boobs, right? And he was like, who cares? You have plenty of assets. And we want to celebrate all women. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so that's one of the things I remember most about my journey being a competitor. So when you talk about the mentorship and the roles that I served, you know, yes, I ended up, you know, competing. I personal trained, I coached athletes, I taught posing,
which, by the way, is the hardest posing.
So not normal?
No, and I had the couple shows I did were right after I was Mrs. Washington, right? And so
oh my gosh, totally
I was
different.
like, I'm going to be totally fine. And I was like, oh hell no, this posing is so different and so hard. Like it actually like hurts, right?
It hurts your lower back.
It hurts your lower back. And you're posing in a completely different way. And that's literally, a posing coach is what can make or break an athlete, right? Is being able to pose correctly. And so you play such a crucial role in that because it's also very hard, like being on the other end of it. Like when I went straight from pageant to bodybuilding, which actually happens pretty often.
Right.
And I never forget, you know, in the pageant world, I had this great body and I won Mrs. Fitness at Mrs. America and all this stuff. And then I went to my first bodybuilding show and it was really just because somebody suggested I should go. I didn't change anything about how I was training or anything. I was just like, I'll hire a coach for posing and then I'll go. And boy, was I a fish out of water. And I remember standing backstage being like, oh, this is like next level. Like these women are incredible. And being like, even being self-conscious about my body, even though
you have a new level of body dysmorphia. You're in the best shape of your life and all of a sudden you have body dysmorphia.
Right. And you see that too backstage. So I'm curious, like how as a coach do you handle that? Because I did 2 shows and I couldn't do it again. And a lot of it was what I saw backstage with some of the competitors and the body dysmorphia or like the mental toll that it took, especially with the prep, right? Peak week and prep week and all that stuff. And I was just blown away by the level of dedication, but also, you know, if you don't have a strong mentor, the toll that it can take on you. So how do you coach women athletes through that piece of it?
I always feel that you have to start at the beginning. So not only did I experience my own journey with that, but then you start to notice other women are struggling with that too. And I just thought, this is such a shame. Like coming into this industry is supposed to be about health and getting you to elevate your physical fitness and your physical body, which means we should have increased confidence. And when that doesn't happen, when you actually end up with women and men in general that have lower self-esteem, I thought, this is not right, right? Yep. So when I would interview candidates who wanted to become, you know, members of my team and be coached by me, I would have this extensive orientation where I would interview them and I would, you know, ask them about their why. Why do you want to compete? Is this, you know, for health reasons? Is it because you're competitive? Is this because you need validation? You know, and so we would get deep into that to really discover what their why was, and then to be able to set the tone for, you know, you have to have a certain mindset to be able to survive this industry.
Oh, yeah.
And so we start teaching that right away. So mindset training and mental health, all of those things were a part of our curriculum in our program, and that's something that we had to talk about all the time. And to this day, when I have an annual all-women's competition workshop in March every year in Bellevue, and that's, you know, we talk about visualization, affirmation, we talk about identity. That's the biggest thing. And so in any subjective sport, what's different about bodybuilding is we're talking about our physical bodies, and especially as women, that's very personal to us, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so they have to be able to separate and stay grounded. You know, when I look back at how did I survive and do this for 20 years, it was because my identity was grounded and rooted in Christ, right? Mm-hmm. So initially my identity is as a Christian, and I see myself as God sees me. So that really was part of what helped me. Even with my body issues, I thought, you know, why would I let a magazine or the way, you know, this group of women over here, how they look affect how I feel about myself? You know, that's not healthy, that's not right, I need to pivot from that. And so I think that's really important to understand that if you're going to try to achieve something, you have to be able to just separate like the worldly treasures from the intangible treasures. So, you know, for me, that's why I say, you know, there's the trophies and the medals, and there's a place for that. But what I'm most proud of is the journey that I went through, how my character evolved, how my faith grew, how I became stronger mentally and emotionally. And those are the real prizes. Yeah. And so those same transformations was able to lead me through business, through entrepreneurship, and to where I am today. And that's my real jewel, not the medals.
Well, if anybody's going to get me to do another bodybuilding show, it's you.
Well, I have a show. It's every year in Tacoma. It's perfect. Everybody wants to be fit in the summertime. It's June 21st at the Tacoma Convention Center.
Perfect. This is a great segue because it's very clear that you are motivational and that you inspire other people. And so I know that you have been a TEDx speaker. It's Claire and I have talked about this. It's kind of on my bucket list of things to do.
You will get it. You will get it.
So I would love to hear about your experience with that and like walk us through what kind of preparation that took, kind of what you spoke about, and would you recommend other people do it?
Okay. So I love that you use the word preparation, because afterwards, when people would say, how did it go? How did it go? And I would answer, it went great. And it's all because of preparation. It truly, truly is. So when you think of goal setting, you know, you set a goal and you affirm that you can do it, and then you visualize what it's going to look like when you do it, whether it's in a year or a couple of months. And so I visualized it. I believed I could do it. So I started on that journey. And it's funny because my talk is actually on failure and how to embrace it. And so as I was applying, I was excited because I knew I was going to fail and screw up the first few applications because I didn't know what I was doing, and I had a lot of work to do as far as researching. So it was cute because I remember filling out an application for I think UCLA Berkeley, and they asked me, what is the scientific research that pertains to your talk? And I remember thinking, damn, I don't have one. And I remember, but I had already spent 20 minutes on this application. So I was going to get it done because part of the trial and error is you got to get through the process. You can't be so consumed with failing that you don't finish. That's the biggest mistake people make. So I finished the application and I knew I wasn't going to get accepted, but I learned something from that application. I thought next time I will have some evidence or science-based data to back up my talk. So I tried it on my own for a little bit. And then again, it's kind of the mentality, I think that the more competitive you are, and if there's a sense of urgency for your goal, a lot of times it makes sense to hire a professional. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I did in bodybuilding. Throughout my career, I would hire gymnastics coaches, handstand coaches, personal trainers, nutritionists, and this was no different. I thought, obviously, there's a system. This has been around for a while. I would like the fast track. I don't want to spend 2 years dinking around making the mistakes. So I did hire a speaking, coaching, training group that specialized in acquiring TED Talks. And I'm happy to say, even though I spent a ton of money, that I did land my talk within 4 months, right? And so, but then once you get into the program, all the different TEDx's, they're like bodybuilding shows. They're put on by different people, and so they do things, they have a few standards, but they can do things differently. So ours, they did allow us to, we were assigned a speaker training coach. Yep. And so, and she, I think it was a big part of our success for being so prepared. I call her a drill sergeant because, we would meet with her every Saturday for about 3 months. And she would walk us through our idea, which, my initial idea was 3 different talks. I was told that you need to really make that concise because that can be 3 different categories. And then you have to craft it. And in crafting the talk, there's 7 different parts. There's like the intro, and then there's the problem, and there's the solution. So there's all those
story building,
the journey, right? And then there's the editing process where you have to go through draft after draft. And I would always be excited, like, okay, I can't wait for her to tear it apart because the talk needed to be 10 minutes. So what I thought was very challenging about delivering a TEDx is that it has to be pre-approved, which means it has to be written. And so I am presenting something that I have memorized. And that is not
and that's
how
where I go
do.
with the preparation thing. You're not up there like winging it, right? Like a keynote where you can kind of have some liberty. Like they want you, it better be exactly what you submitted, right?
Right. Or if you go off the hook or go off the fly, you might say something that doesn't get approved and then it doesn't get published. The talk does not get published. Oh, wow. And so this, because it's a brand, right? Then it's not like a keynote talk where I get hired and they want me to speak on a certain topic. I'll establish some, bullets and then be able to speak, extemporaneously on that topic. This is from start to finish, section to section, and also timed. And actually the timed part was the hardest for me because my talk initially took me for 13 minutes, and then I had to bring it down to 11. So when I look back, there's parts that I felt like I had to go a little bit faster for the sake of being professional and sticking to a time. But the most difficult part was I had to present something that was memorized and making it feel authentic in the moment.
Yeah, 100%. So we actually have a women's empowerment night on November 3rd. And one of our speakers is Terry Fujinaga, who's one of the TEDx Bellevue women owners. And I went to the TEDx show last year and I was just like fascinated by the whole thing.
That's where I think I saw you too.
Yes. And I was just like, what is this world and how do I like get into it? But I was completely floored that all of these speakers had their speeches memorized, and it was, down to every word was a rehearsed word. And they also have a speaker coach, and I randomly met this year's speaker coach, who's fabulous. And And so I'm excited to see how the speakers do this year. But it's an art, right? Like public speaking is an art in and of itself, but then rehearsed public speaking is like next level, right? It's a performance. Right.
But I think you're going to do really well, because I was
I do
literally
too.
just talking about, like, I was like, my best friend, she's really good at preparing for everything ahead. So she knows exactly what's happening. She prepared. And then, like, I think that I think this world is looking for leaders. We need the leaders to actually prepare for the best and the worst and everything between, right? And I think, like, I believe that Linda definitely had that characteristic because how fully prepared she is. And then, because we are like the polar opposite. She like fully prepared. I'll just go off tangent. So I was like, you know what? I'm glad I have her in my life. She's like my rock. She's like the anchor, keep me in place, where I'm this like free spirit, just like flying around, like whatever's happening. But, I think that in the leadership journey, every person's characteristic there is really important. And then for your experience with the United States Air Force, how did you feel that shaped your leadership journey?
Oh my goodness. I mean, that is definitely the foundation. When you think about my upbringing, because my dad was Army. I grew up an Army brat. Like I said, I thought I was going to be military for life. My upbringing is like, think of Samuel L. Jackson. Like, that's what my dad looked like, felt like, talked like, right? Coming into our room Saturdays at 8 a.m. and saying, get your, the word up. Because we had to get up at 8 a.m. to clean the house. And we couldn't turn on any TV until it was done. And it took about 3 hours. Because my mom, being critical and super into detail, every single room had a checklist. And so we couldn't screw it up. It was like kitchen, do the floor, do the counter, do the sink, the dishes, wipe the table, wipe the cabinets down. So
wow, I am failing as a parent right now. Like, what did you learn from your time with Tanji? Well, my children need to do more chores.
Oh my goodness. So honestly, so by the time I went to the Air Force Academy, I was ready. I was ready. I was craving freedom because my upbringing was very sheltered. But so let me talk about the Air Force Academy because it's very enduring to me. When I think about the 4 years I spent there, now it is a college, but it was a leadership laboratory. So I want you to picture being a freshman, and most of the freshmen coming in, they were all big shots and well celebrated from their high schools. But the Air Force Academy would break us all down. So that we could be followers and learn how to be a part of a team to pursue and support a mission that was way bigger than us. So that's the first thing that we learned. And then when you become a sophomore, you are now the trainer. And so we hands-on got to train the freshman cadets. And we were all responsible for at least 8 to 10 people for that whole year. And then our junior year, we became supervisors. So now we're supervising about 4 to 5 of those sophomores that were training the 8 to 10, right? And so by the time we were seniors, we were leaders, leading the supervisors who were supervising the trainers who were training the followers. And so that was my 4 years, just the military part, in addition to taking all the academics. So that's why when, a lot of these cadets graduate from the military academies, we become commissioned officers and we get put into a job with a lot of responsibility right away, because we have been trained to be leaders. And so my first job was an aircraft maintenance officer over in Spokane. We had the KC-135 refueler, and so I was a maintenance officer. So my job was, I was responsible for over 200 people that were in charge of the flight line, and so I got
At
to
21 years old?
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
So part of that is also putting the ego aside, because I was fortunate enough to have senior NCOs, which is the enlisted force. So we're talking senior master sergeants, chief master sergeants. They know the people, they know the airplane, they know the business. So they actually are the ones that know everything. I'm just the one that was accountable to being responsible and had to make the decision. So we had to work together, and there had to be that mutual respect and synergy in how we work together. So what I love about what the Academy taught me, the Air Force core values that I love to this day start with integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all you do. So what I felt like I took away from that, so when I think of integrity first, that's being an authentic leader, always. Just be who you are so that people trust you. People trust you if they know you. If they don't know you, they won't trust you, right? and you won't be effective. So then there's the service before self. And it always made me think of value-based leadership and just serving, like you're serving as a leader to give value to your team, your people, more so than what you're going to get out of them. That's going to be the byproduct of being a good leader. And then excellence in all you do, this is your ability to look at systems and look at either individual or at a team and break down the habits, like what's happening, what are people doing consistently, and what do we need to change. So, I give a lot of credit to that 4-year experience and then my active duty experience as an officer. I thought I was going to do that forever, but when I pivoted to the fitness industry, I just took all of those leadership lessons and I just applied them to my business as a fitness leader.
Looking back, do you feel like the way that your parent was having a structure for you and then also having these standards of, being responsible basically for your own life from the beginning as like a great foundation? Do you think that was, my parents is exactly the same way, by the way. My dad was in Air Force and my mom was a doctor. So everything's very meticulous, even to this day. She keeps a log for everything my kids eat, like a doctor.
What?
Until they are like 5-year-olds. So if there's a day in my household, going to number 2 is called detox. That's our little keyword. So if my kids doesn't detox, like she will freak out. She will like, honey, I was like, Mom, Aiden's literally like 11. Everything's gonna be fine. I'm sure he's
like,
gonna.
He hasn't detoxed.
Yeah, he hasn't detoxed today. I was like, okay. But anyways, I do think that your parents upbringing for you makes a huge difference in how you see the world, how you set a really high standard for yourself.
Yes, absolutely. The one thing I'll never forget that my dad did. So my dad was from Georgia, and he wasn't from the good part of town, and so his whole side of the family, I'll say it, they lived in the projects. That was their upbringing, and so his decision to go into the Army changed the trajectory of our family legacy. And I'm not too good to say. I honestly just don't know. I would love to say that there was this innate quality in me that no matter where I was and what environment I would have survived, but I don't know. What I do know is that when he had to retire, he chose to be close, South Carolina, enough to drive to go visit our family, but not too close. Right? So he literally gave us a new environment. And that environment was, at the time it was predominantly white. It was affluent. I don't know how we got the house we got in our neighborhood because it was like the poorest house in the neighborhood, but we went to a good school. And my dad, I remember in 9th grade, he sat me down because most of my friends, their parents had businesses and they were business owners and my parents were employed. And he said, and I have 4 brothers and sisters. And he said, Tanji, I just want you to know that your mother and I don't have any money set aside for any of y'all to go to school. But we want you to go. But I'm just telling you, now that you're in 9th grade, you got 4 years to figure it out.
Oh, wow.
And I was
in
like,
9th grade, yeah.
Yes. And I just remember, because I do remember at that time knowing how important school was, but I just remember this kick in the butt that I felt like, oh, it's on me. It's on me. Like, I'm going to have to try to, try out for, a sport. I even, just to get into the academy, came up with my own dance team and made myself captain just to get a leadership button, right?
Oh, my God,
and then,
love that.
joined ROTC and did student body government, but I just remember doing all the things only because he reminded me that it was all on me. And then that has served me all my life because I have this personal responsibility. And that's why I'm so passionate about empowerment, because I feel like we all need to empower ourselves to redesign our lives, whatever we want.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, we have some fun rapid fire questions.
This is a new thing we're trying,
yeah.
by the way.
Instead of a quote to end this, we're going to do some fun rapid fire to get to know you. So go, Claire.
Okay, are you a morning person or night owl?
Night owl for sure.
Okay, who's more intense, athletes or finance professionals?
Athletes.
What's your go-to pump it up food before a big meeting?
Go-to pump it up food?
Yeah.
Sushi.
Ooh, yeah. Okay. If you could play on any sports team in history, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. Any sport. This is supposed to be rapid fire. Honestly, I would have loved to have been a part of the women's gymnastics team for the Olympics.
Okay, well, that's a great segue to say if you have not Googled her yet, please do, because what we didn't say in the bodybuilding conversation is that this isn't Tanji didn't just do like the posed bodybuilding. She did like the fitness routine. Like this woman is an athlete times 10 and is a gymnast and all of those things and was a gladiator. Like, please Google her. She's amazing. We're so grateful that you sat down with us
This was
today.
so fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
we
Thank you
just-
for being here.
Yeah, thank you for echoing our sentiments about community and friendship and, you know, the power that women hold to empower one another. And this is a beautiful example of, you know, giving each other a platform and a voice to share our stories.
I love what you guys are doing. So I salute you both. It's so important.
And we're in this together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you next time.